Welcome to Founders Forum. My name is Executive Trustee David Renty. The more we work with our syndications in CMI, one begins to feel like our associates or our family. That's a nice feeling, I must say. Whatever happened to the good old days of neighborhoods of yesteryear, where everyone knew each other and cared for each other? Sometimes I long for those days. In today's topic, the CMI founder and executive trustee, Mr. James E. Aldrich Jr., helps us understand clearly that CMI is really a village. Grab a comfortable chair and sit back to listen on today's topic, the village.
This is one of my most favorite subjects, and I really enjoy talking about this when we come to that part of our workshop, our full one-day workshop, when I get to go into this particular subject matter, the family unit. You know, in the Afro-American culture, family values have been passed down through parables and stories for generation to generation. And this is true of many cultures. Many of these parables and stories even cross cultural and ethnic barriers. When this occurred at one particular time, it was a parable, and I call it a soundbite, that our First Lady, Hillary Clinton at the time, was using, addressing a crowd of Afro-Americans, and I really didn't know what to think or feel or how to react when this was done at that particular time. And I remember my wife and I were watching at the same time, and when we heard her use this particular phrase and wanting to go into this particular example, we looked at each other in pure amazement. How is it possible that she could make a statement like that and truly be able to relate to the true story involved in it? What real understanding could she have behind the true meaning of that particular example that was given, that particular parable? Now, don't get me wrong, we voted for this couple, and but don't try to snowball me when you're talking to me. The phrase, the statement, the parable she was about to go into read like this: it takes a village to raise a child. I almost fell out of my seat when I heard her say that. As she started to expound on the topic and come to particular conclusions, I looked at my wife, and she knew that they did not get it at that particular point. This is a very deep and meaningful story and lesson, one of the few that does actually cross culture and ethnic barriers. First, let me share my personal experience and personal upbringing that illustrates the true meaning of it takes a village to raise a child. This is also how I see the interaction of the family unit through CMI, through what I like to call the extended CMI family. This is a true family value story, and it began when I was about 10 or so, somewhere in there, about 10 or 12. I lived on a block with maybe about 40 kids on that one block, and that's quite a few kids for one block. Now, that's not at all unusual to have that many kids on one block when you consider it being the inner city. Every Saturday we had a kickball game. Every Sunday we had a softball game right out in the street. No matter what your age was, everybody got to play. It was really something. We had One telephone pole was first base, and then we had a manhole in the middle of the street that became second base. On the other side of the street, we had a fire hydrant that became third base, and then we would get one of those white rocks, and we would scratch in the street, draw in the street what would be our home base. That was pretty neat. As far as curfews were concerned, every kid on the block knew when the street lights came on, you had to be in front of your house or on the block. Now, you didn't have to tell us about a curfew. That we were raised with that particular mentality, and every parent knew that that was instilled in every child. Then, of course, once we got back on the block or in front of the house, then the hide-and-go-seek games would start. There was no such thing as go inside and play in Xbox and Nintendo the rest of the evening. And we won't even get into cell phones. And you're called on your cell phone when it's time to come in for dinner. All the mothers came with this superpower built-in lung power. You could be 2 blocks away. You would hear your name called, and you would come streaking through hill and dale. In our case, over backyard fence and running from the neighborhood dog. If it took you too long to show up, you were in trouble. If you didn't hear your name called because you were too far away, it was like this relay that would go from one mom to another or one kid to another. And you would hear, "James, your mom's calling you." And you'd get to tearing through the neighborhoods getting back home. If you were down the street and you were doing something you wasn't supposed to be doing, Miss North, she would come out and get you. Now, there was no such thing as going home and telling your mom that Miss North spanked me. You'd get another spanking when you got home, because your mom would be in the frame of mind of, well, you must have been doing something you wasn't supposed to be doing. On hot summer days, I remember, any kid on the block, we always knew where the Kool-Aid was, in Miss Polson's house. We could just walk right in, and in her ice box, she'd have this big pitcher of cold Kool-Aid, and it was like it was never empty. But we would all go at one time or another during the day, and that Kool-Aid pitcher was endless. It seems like any time you'd walk in there, it was full of nice cold Kool-Aid. The parents, no matter where you were, always made sure that the kids were where they were supposed to be when the lights would come on. You'd be down the street and Miss Wilson would say, "James, aren't you supposed to be at home by now?" And of course, I'm responding, "Yes, Miss Wilson, I'm on my way home." Or whenever another parent would be calling, the parents would relay the message. Parents disciplining a kid, whosever kid it was at the time. Parents giving food and shelter to other kids on the block. We never had to worry about things such as, child abuse at other parents' hands. Parents watching out for all the kids on the block, not just their own. This was and is a village raising a child. My wife and I were just really wondering how much of the true meaning of a village raising a child could Miss Clinton relate to. How much of that did she truly live? In all of the privileged neighborhoods that we driven through and been through, and as we were looking for a new trust headquarters at one time, we went into the neighborhoods that had the $3 and $4 and $5 million homes, and there was a distinct absence of kids playing in the streets. Most people barely even knew the neighbors on each side of them, less known from one block to the other. But here was my question. The example I gave about the block I grew up on and the interaction of the parents with the children and watching over the children. The mothers were at home. Fathers worked, mothers were at home raising the children. So I'm understanding when Mrs. Clinton says it takes a village to raise a child, what message is she really trying to convey, especially with the example she was giving? My question to her would be, how is that supposed to be the case if everybody's out working? Because that's how it is today. The mothers aren't at home to raise the children and watch over the children while the fathers are out working. They're both out working. How is a village supposed to raise a child if everybody is out working? Where does that leave the village? Where does that leave the children? Due to both parents working, you find that families fall apart many times. Kids go into a dysfunctional mode. We never had an opportunity, to go into this dysfunctional mode. We always had somebody's parent watching out for us, watching over us, no matter where we were. This is what I enjoy so much about CMI. Through CMI, we have an opportunity to put the villages back together all across America. That's why CMI's comp plan is structured in the manner that it is. Its debt plan is structured in the manner that it is. Its private placements are structured in the manner that they are. They are set up for long-term benefits. By working the comp plan correctly, organizing your debt, managing your money correctly, using the investment opportunities in CMI, anyone can put their family in a position to where if the wife did not want to have to work and be home raising the children, then that is absolutely a tangible possibility in CMI. It is not about it would be nice if we could. You absolutely can. We have the tools that will allow you to do exactly that. CMI has already put and allowed many mothers the opportunity to go back home again and be with the children. And don't worry, dads, we're working on you. If we use CMI wisely and put mothers back in the home again, bring family units back together again, we can rebuild the village once again all across the country. It dawned on me as I was going through what I wanted to do for this recording that we have even had some new tools added to even assure us that this can be a reality for families all across the country, because when we added the Family Foundation to our set of financial tools, it actually presented us with an opportunity to put one of the most important and vital parts and aspects of the village back in place that was missing and has been missing for several generations now. What's missing from the village right now today? It's the grandparents. So where are the grandparents? They're working or they're off in a retirement home somewhere. Utilizing the foundation, we can actually put one of the most vital aspects of the village back together. And that's, the grandparents that are now working because of the economic conditions that they're under, utilizing the foundation and the tools that I mentioned to you prior, they can actually be retired and be in the home where they are of most benefit to the family in helping to rear and raise the children, and still there to help assist and guide their own children when and where necessary. I have seen one challenge after another resolved by talking with the elders in families, by talking with our senior citizens. They are a huge wealth of information and knowledge. And I think one of the worst things that ever happened to the family unit, this village, was the grandparents being pulled out through having to go back to work again or being put off into a retirement home because of the lack of financial support available. God, or your spiritual belief, through charitable foundations, putting family units back together again, through the concept of it takes a village to raise a child, bringing mothers back home again, and a base being built with the American Silver Eagle bullion coin presented to us by our country, by our government. You now can see CMI is a tangible tool for each and every individual to use to show the true power of God, family, and country when they are combined in revitalizing and rebuilding the family unit. As you can see through this subject matter on the village, CMI does not just produce sound bites. We talk the talk and we walk the walk. Know that if the family unit is a concern to you, if it's important to you, if it's vital to your existence, you truly love your family, you want the true family unit back together again. Each and every person should want the true family unit back together again, because I feel like all other challenges that we are faced with stems from home. I would like to say to you, welcome to a different economic reality. It truly does take a village to raise a child. If you want to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem, let's bring your village back together again. I do look forward to visiting your village soon as our extended family. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to the CMI founder and executive trustee, Mr. James E. Aldrich, Jr. We hope these Founders Forums tapes are proving to be a great investment toward your continued financial education.